normally this would probably be an editor from PTI sitting down and interviewing you, but of course we're living in, let's say, extraordinary times. It's actually quite rare for so many people to be in one space in form. We have the added advantage that it's also 32 degrees out, so we've lost the suit jacket.
Right.
But we're going to tick in. Let's start with some big picture questions. What do you see as the large trends that the industry, the maritime industry, needs to be focusing on over the coming decade?
I would rather go even one step wider. I would say the large trends we are facing as a society. I think one trend is probably our focus on sustainability. As a society, we see, okay, we probably have to do a lot more about sustainability in all its different facets to be also successful in the future, to hand over a functioning Earth to our kids and grandchildren, and also to tap the potential of diversity, which we definitely need in the future. I think one further trend is also the shift of the global center of economic gravity, which will shift to the east over the next decades. And this will also bring decisive changes on us. Today, we are a very well-educated, affluent society. And I think especially being the European Union, we have our voice has a value, and perhaps this value might shrink over the next decades. And I'm not sure if we are prepared for this situation. And kind of going hand in hand with that, what probably will also affect the next decades is the positioning of the United States. The United States were, for us, probably the representative of democracy. And they have a lot of challenges to deal with. And on the same time, as the center is moving to the east, what will be their position and where will they position themselves? Again, also in regard to sustainability. And probably one further trend which will shape our future or our economic future is also the African youth bulb. Because our societies will shrink, even, or also the Asian society will shrink quite a bit. And the African society will grow over the next decades. Actually, it's even one of their challenges will also be, we are talking about the US and China. Those are countries. Africa is a continent with all those quite diverse countries. And I think it will be decisive if they find, let's say, comparable to the European Union, if they find one voice, or if they will struggle with all those separate voices and again not get the value they might want to achieve or they need to achieve. But from an economical point of view, now the trading routes are strong between China and Europe, China and US, and having all the young people in Africa, those routes will change decisively. And again, are we prepared for that? Do we have scenarios how we want to cope? How do we want to participate in this specific development?
Good questions. If we sort of say, okay, the world's shifting and the economic center shifting to an Asian center, are we likely then to see big shifts in the movement of goods?
For sure we are, because I just read that a lot of movement of goods now is done, let's say, for production in Asia, and then for the consumer side of the equation to US, Europe, whatever. But since the Asian market will be stronger in the future and more people will be able to afford those goods, there will be a way stronger inner Asian consume of goods. And so also the transport will be stronger there. And probably also, let's say, the center of transportation, or it might be an axis of transportation, will shift and will be inner Asia, Africa, perhaps in a long-term view.
It might be hard to say, but does that mean that we're likely to see drop-offs in volumes in Europe and North America, or is it going to just be that we're seeing growth in those other regions in, let's say, an on-par or moderate growth in typical regions?
I guess it depends on the length of the view or how far in the future we look, because I think by now, consume will probably still rise because people tend to spend their money there, they enjoy goods, they enjoy individualized goods, so they will probably still go on with that. But if our societies are shrinking as the predictions are, this will also bring a drop-off in the amount of goods. Perhaps we face totally different ways of transportation, which will perhaps also be more adapted to smaller amounts or smaller bundles of goods. So that's, I guess, it depends.
We've heard a lot through the coronavirus pandemic about supply chains and perhaps rethinking supply chains and keeping things more locally produced. What impact is that likely to have in the broader logistics framework?
For the moment, I think we are still all in a kind of shock. So we have no clear picture, and we probably can't because we don't have the experience, how this pandemic will affect all these different areas of our life. I think healthcare goods probably might be also produced more locally so that they are available. But I don't know which percentage of goods are healthcare goods. And for the time being, the fashion industry is struggling immensely. So they probably won't think about shortening their supply chains because they just probably still have to go for what is the cheapest way to produce. Yes, on the other side, consumers might go more for sustainability, for human rights, for ecology and this stuff. So for sure, some brands will change their supply chains and adapt more to those needs. But from the big picture, I think still, unfortunately, perhaps still a huge amount of supply chains will be oriented on where can we get the best for the money we invest and where can we make the money. And it's difficult for companies to decide between being profitable, if it comes to that question, and being sustainable.
It's an interesting point because realistically most, let's say, port or terminal operators are probably operating on quite narrow margins themselves. From a sustainability perspective, if we apply that argument, we're saying that then ports and terminals are more likely to worry about their day-to-day operations and remaining profitable opposed to being sustainable. But that leaves us in a very awkward position in 10, 15, 20 years, with maritime being one of the largest polluters in the world. How do we find a balance there?
Fortunately, we have many voices. It's the voice of a company and it's the voice of the society or the community around a port. And I think we have to cooperate with each other, and the communities also have means and measures to put pressure on ports. And also port authorities, for example, want to be seen as contributing to the community and being an important part of the society they are embedded in. So they know they have to go in the direction of smart ports, having less pollution, less noise, being an attractive employer. But I think those developments can only exist in the field of different interests, mitigate between different interests and hearing different interests, and then finding one mutual way together. And for sure also not one port or one port authority can do it all alone. I think they also have to have the pressure and the support that other port authorities might have to take the same route.
We're talking broadly about the carrot and the stick approach. Is one more effective than the other from your perspective?
Oh, that's difficult to say. You have to be able to afford what you do as a company. That's, let's say, the easy learning. If you are about to go down, probably no carrot or stick will help, because you have to take care that your company still exists tomorrow. And if you have good margins and you can just take some away and therefore get, let's say, be part of a more stable environment, of a affluent society, then probably, I guess it depends on the leaders of this specific company, if they are more open to the stick or to the carrot.
Interesting. I guess time will tell. We're seeing a host of new sticks being introduced into maritime, for instance, with the IMO's regulations that came into effect earlier this year. Time will tell whether that's an effective tool to mitigate some of the sustainability and climate impacts of shipping. You noted actually quite intelligently, I will add, that sustainability is more than just climate sustainability. You were talking about looking after employees, so on and so forth. Inform's quite an innovative company. They've embraced the UN Sustainability Development Goals, of which there's 17 different SDGs. Tell me a little bit about why Inform's done that and what some of the early learnings have been.
Inform is already, let's say, quite a grown company. So we are 50 years old. We had our celebration last year. Fortunately for us, it was last year. And early on, the spirit of the company was to base their strategies on sustainability. Sustainability in terms of customer relationships, in terms of cooperation with the employees, and giving them a healthy and satisfying working environment. And with the whole movement in regard to the sustainability goals, it was quite easy for us, it wasn't a big step. It was in our genes that we have to go this way and embrace, as you said it, those sustainability goals. And it's the thought that it's not only about profit, but it's as well about people and planet. That's very rough in a nutshell what it's about. And being about people is, again, it's the community we are in, it's about the employees, it's about the customers. And the planet is how can we contribute? Our products are so well positioned to support sustainability goals, especially when it comes to ecology. And because by optimizing processes, you always cut routes, you reduce equipment, you definitely, by all of that, you reduce carbon footprint of those companies.
One of your customer ports, CTA in Hamburg, was recently in the news where they've been recertified as the only, and I quote, certified climate neutral container terminal. How is it that, or what role does Inform software play in helping a terminal like CTA achieve that status?
I think that's a huge achievement, and this achievement has probably many contributors to it, from the energy they use and a lot of different aspects. But sure, we are proud that also our products help the port to achieve those goals. Our products are at their core about optimization, and optimization, it's always to reduce the equipment you need, because you find a smarter way to bring containers from A to B. You find a better way to do double cycles, and therefore you just have a shorter routing and you need less equipment. For example, we take care of the routing of the rail cranes and of the vehicles delivering the goods to the rail area. And by doing so, we can just do a smarter approach, or the customer can do a smarter approach. And every equipment you save, every route you reduce is one contribution to being more sustainable.
I want to circle back. We're coming up close to the time for this portion of the interview. I want to circle back to the idea around the broader economic shifts. Some would argue that means that we need to talk a bit more innovatively around how we do what we do. Some argue that we haven't seen any major innovations in the industry since the advent of containerization with McLean. Some argue that innovation is in fact part and parcel for what we do. Where do you sit on that balance?
I think the industry has some challenges with innovation. As you pointed out before, the margins are not so great. They are rather small. We have very long asset cycles, and profit has to split between different parties. So it's not easy to bring on innovations or to take risks. And but there is some movement to innovations, and I think perhaps for the time being it's not so much about what's the next huge innovation we yet don't think of. But I think there is a big challenge in adapting all those challenges, all those innovations which are already out there. Like, for example, autonomous vessels. Like really find a way to make the smart port and the smart city work. Like to introduce cyber-physical, and I would add cyber-physical human systems into the port business and find out how they can really work in a beneficial way. Connected to that, the industrial Internet of Things. That's a huge step. I mean, we already thought about it, so it's not an innovation per se because it's already there, but how to really implement it, to have it working out smoothly, to take care of the cybersecurity issues coming with it. That will keep us busy for quite a time. So I think there has to be think tanks about what's coming next. But to tackle all those steps to be successful with all those things which are already there, and they will contribute decisively to sustainability in all its different facets, like having safer, better workplaces, being able to attract young people, the millennials, or let's go one step further, linksters, I heard they are called, to attract those, because I know now we are kind of have a wide field, but because we have to be attractive. That will be one question in the future, where to get this highly educated personnel.
Are there companies that are doing well, or ports or terminals that are doing well at implementing some of these innovative ideas, or let's say not innovative? Perhaps we don't get bogged down in that terminology, but are there companies or ports that are doing better at implementing some of these ideas? And are they established players? Are they large? Are they small? Are they startups?
From my perspective, we have to look for cooperations between big players and perhaps startups, because startups by themselves, they can have great ideas, but they might not have the power to get those ideas implemented on a larger scale. So we have some players like the Rotterdam Port Authority tackling the container exchange route, which will help to reduce the carbon footprint, which will help to have a more sustainable flow of goods between the ports. We have DP World with Box Bay, which is a very new concept, and it's a very challenging concept, so we have to see how it will work out. We have smaller players like HHLA with, as you said, the CTA was the first certified carbon neutral terminal, which is a great achievement. Then we have companies which go for more automation. It has its, let's say, its values for sustainability. In the communities, it also might have some challenges we all have to discuss and talk about. So yes, there are some players, the Port of Singapore, there are some players which are already pushing the envelope, and but it has to be, or we see during the next couple of years probably, if it will really be part of the daily life of those ports. And will it be part of it in a way that we don't talk about it anymore because it's just so much routine?
Some argue that AI and the emerging prevalence of AI, and probably the most transparent version of that is machine learning, are some of the more recent innovation that we're seeing globally and certainly within maritime. You've recently delivered machine learning into one of your port customers. What impact will AI and machine learning have from an innovation perspective on our industry?
AI and machine learning, as I pointed out many times, are tools. And you have to be good in using those tools, because otherwise they won't bring you any benefit. We implemented machine learning at the container terminal Burchardkai in Hamburg. And by using this machine learning engine, we help to reduce actually, or to free some stacking area. Because I think we are marketing it wrongly, actually, because we always talk about dwell time and stuff. And actually it freed space for them. Because with using this, they always had this area in the automated blocks, which was dedicated for containers of which they didn't know where they were leaving the port. And now, since with using our machine learning engines, they know more precisely, a lot more precisely, this container, although it might not be accurate in the container data, is probably leaving the port by train, by truck, by ship. And by knowing more precisely, they can stack this container more precisely. And they don't need anymore to free or keep free so much space for those, let's say, unknown containers. And this gives them a lot more space to make use for just daily business. And also it reduces a lot the unnecessary rehandlers, because again, you can stack the containers more appropriately. And the nice thing about this is the hand in hand between our machine learning engine and the optimization. Because the machine learning can give the optimization input. What do historical data tell me about this specific container? And then the optimization can take those information and decide, okay, the situation is in the moment as it is. And because of this situation, it would be a smart strategy to stack the container there or to make use of this equipment. And so this hand in hand brings a lot of benefit to the customer. And again, you asked for the impact from AI and machine learning. This can actually only be done with data and with AI or machine learning. This can't be done by humans because the amount of data, the amount of information is just too vast. And we are all just gathering experiences with those tools. The tools are around already for 5 decades. They are not new, but we didn't have the means to make use of them. So there we are kind of in a learning curve. And this will probably shape our future quite decisively because you can make use of it at so many different spots. But with all different new technologies, we also have to learn how to implement it easier, how to find, let's say, tools for the tools to make it easier to use those tools.
Let's circle back to sustainability. What are some of the impacts that AI and machine learning can have on a port or terminal's ability to be sustainable in the future?
If your goals are to reduce your carbon footprint, to make work safer, you can scan with machine learning your data for clues, for patterns. How can I achieve this goal? And then you can adapt your strategies to it. And it can have a big impact with, let's say, not much change and not much investment by just being smarter in what you do. And so it will definitely help to achieve sustainability.
That brings us to the end of this portion of the interview. It's interesting that a lot of the innovations that you discussed, I think 4 out of the 5 that you noted at least, were around technology, which sets the frame quite nicely for part 2. We're going to be back shortly to talk about data and technology and its impact on our industry.